Welcome to my desktop. Let's jump right into intuitive and deliberative thinking. Now, what is this shortcut? Well, let me show you how much our minds absolutely crave to save time, leading us to avoid proper thought. Crave to save time, crave to save energy. So this all comes from a big psychological study that was done out there, pretty famous within the world of behavioral science and psychology. And the study was revolving around a few questions, two of them which I'm going to share with you. First question, a bat and ball cost $1.10 in total. The bat cost $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Second question, if it takes 5 machines to make 5 widgets in 5 minutes, how long would it take 100 machines to make 100 widgets? Now, I'll give you a chance here. If you want to fully participate, pause and then answer these questions. All right, welcome back. If you did pause, if not, we had ourselves an awkward silence, but let's go and see what happens. So as far as the ball and bat, most people answer 10 cents. Which is, well, that's wrong. The answer is 5 cents. Wait, what, Clay? What are you talking about? Well, let's break it down. There we have the question. So what we got to think through is, okay, well, if the ball costs 10 cents, which is what most people answered, well, then because the bat costs $1 more than the ball, the bat would therefore cost $1.10. And for some quick math right there, a 10 cents ball plus $1 quote unquote more of bat would give the bat $1.10 in cost. But the premise of the question was, well, the cost is $1.10 in total. So if we do that quick math, a 10 cent ball plus a $1.10 bat, well, we have $1.20 in total, which we have ourselves a whoopsie. If you watch class 2, that should look pretty familiar to you. All right, well, let's go through this though. So if the ball costs 5 cents, then the bat would therefore cost $1.05, right? Because it's got to be $1 more. So $1 more than 5 cents would be $1.05. So if you take a 5 cent ball, add it to $1.05 in the total of the bat cost, well, there we have $1.10 in total, and boom, just like that, we got it right. What about the widgets? Well, a lot of people, there's the question, they're going to answer 100, which is wrong. The right answer is 5 minutes. So let's break this down. And a couple different ways you can go about this. So I get it. In fact, if you want to in the comment section, you can leave how you would have solved it. But like I said, a lot of different ways you can think about this. But here's how I'm going to approach it. What is the relationship that matters most? Well, the relationship is between the machine and the widgets. And when this relationship is equal, how long does it take? So in this situation, we have 5 machines and 5 widgets. 5 and 5 is obviously equal. So therefore, how long does it take? Well, it takes 5 minutes. So per the question, is the relationship that matters most equal? Well, we look there, we can see machines and widgets, both are 100. So our answer to that would be yes. We've established that that is the relationship that matters most. That relationship is equal. So based on that, what is our answer? Well, it would be 5 minutes, right? So if you can see all that, if it takes all of that in place, then you're going to have 5 minutes because that relationship is equal. Which again, wow, just a mind-blowing experience that we all just experienced together. Now, why does this tend to happen? Well, what do we naturally value? And given this is class 3, and assuming you've watched the first 2, are going to say, well, we naturally value time. We love time. So therefore, when we are facing complex or difficult decisions, whenever these things appear to us, yeah, our mind is going to take a shortcut. Our mind desires to take a shortcut. Again, why does it desire to take the shortcut? Because we naturally value our time, which is just another way of saying, you know what? Sadly, even the littlest bit of brain power requirements, our mind will attempt to avoid. I want you to keep that in mind moving forward. Even a small requirement, what that requirement is requiring brain power, No. Can we get around this somehow? How can we avoid this? That's what our brains are absolutely craving to do. So it's not like, oh yeah, because it would make sense, right? A big amount of brain power, okay, I can see that, but even a small amount. And you're going to see this continually as we go. In fact, you just witnessed it. You just probably experienced with those questions. So again, why does this all tend to happen? So regarding the questions, this is how, best way to visualize it here. And I know you've seen this image before, but, if we accept the first answer that comes to mind, that's pretty nice, right? Pretty nice relative to what? Well, instead of actually having to think through the whole time, having to spend time and effort and energy to give that question actual thought. That's just a very much easier thing to do from a time perspective. And that is where, we're gonna be wrong a whole lot of times, but not all times, which is where the gray area comes into play. So how strong is the tends to happen? Well, this is crazy because from this study, out of the 3,428 people who took the test, just 17% answered all three questions. Now, I understand, well, Clay, that doesn't tell us much because maybe they gave this all to like children or to like total morons, which was not the case. Even among MIT students, the best performing group, fewer than half got all three right. And MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, is at least at this point of the recording of this video, the best engineering school in the country and in the world, dare I say. So even among those students, fewer than half got all three right. And I just gave you two of those from a time perspective. With no point to go through all three. I think the first two illustrate the point. But point here being that this is not an intelligence issue. This is a limitation in how we, there's that word, naturally think issue. Now, what amplifies the tens even more? Well, let's review from the past couple classes what can trigger errors within our thinking ability. Well, an environment containing two elements. So do you remember what these are? Hopefully you're saying, oh yeah, Clay, I'm checking my notes, I got this. When an environment contains uncertainty and risk, that's just gonna trigger, way more potential errors within our thinking. Now let's actually consider a few things. Now in answering those questions, was there any uncertainty and risk? Yeah, there was uncertainty just based on the fact of we didn't know the answer. That's why it was a question. And was there risk? Well, sure, there's the risk of being wrong. Now, what about being wrong? Was there any significant consequences to this? Well, sure, maybe a serving of humble pie, maybe you got kind of put back in place, you're not maybe as clever as what you think you are. So sure, a serving of humble pie. But would I say that was a significant consequence? No. In fact, maybe you had kind of a good laugh about it. Yet, even with no significant consequences involved, the vast majority of people got it wrong. So think about that. Most people got it wrong even when there are no significant consequences attached to it. But let's bring trading into the scenario. Now, trading, investing, is there significant consequences in the world of trading? Well, yeah, considering you can lose your money, I would argue that's a pretty significant consequence. Assuming that it's your money and it's hard earned and you want to be serious about this, and I know you do, because if you did not want to be serious about this, you would not be watching this video. You would not be in class 3. So I know that I'm speaking to somebody that is treating this seriously. So yeah, therefore you value that money. So that would be a significant consequence. So let's think about this. If our minds are this prone to mental error when there is an environment containing uncertainty and risk, and then you just compound it. So imagine how much amplified, how much more powerful it becomes when the consequences are a loss of our hard-earned money. I mean, talk about a scenario that's going to want to drive you bonkers. In other words, even if you got them right, don't get overconfident that this whole idea, that this whole concept we're talking about is not a concern for you, okay? Now be honest with yourself here, and I mean, this is where improvement always happens, right? If you're gonna lie to yourself, then you're benefiting nobody other than your ego, which is not what we wanna do. We wanna be honest. So if you got the questions wrong, I mean, did that 10 cent, 100 answers, did they almost like immediately come to mind? I mean, just like you looked at it, you read it, okay, that's the answer. For me, yes. And I should have noted earlier, I got both wrong. So I was part of the statistics. I was a casualty of the statistics. And in my mind, 10, boom, 10 cents. 100, boom. Immediately came to mind. And for me, and ask yourself, did the speed at which the answer that came to mind, did that give you confidence in your thinking? Meaning, wow, that answer showed up quick. Therefore, that's confidence. Wow, that was, I thought of that real quick. And you're feeling good, right? You're feeling confident. And then did you use this confidence as your way to be satisfied that your answer was correct? For me, absolutely. The answer immediately popped into my mind. I thought, wow, given the rate at how fast that answer popped into my mind, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling confident about myself. And that confidence, I am satisfied. That's the correct answer. So we have to keep in mind that our minds impulsively use speed to validate confidence, which is the shortcut. And then this is causing us to think, to be satisfied, we are right, and therefore give the problem no more, zero further consideration or deeper thought, even though we are actually wrong. So you got to keep that in mind, which again is all being built on the premise of our minds crave to just save time, to avoid using energy. We just don't want to actually do that. Now, what about if you got the answers right? Again, just be honest. Did the 10 cents to the 100 almost immediately come to mind? Most people say that it did. When you look at the research, they admit, it did. Now, the difference here is that you chose to ignore your initial answer and decided to, let's think through before answering. And to that, I say, well done to you. However, don't get overconfident. You had plenty of reasons to doubt the answer was as easy as it appeared, right? So when I went into it, I tried my best to put myself in the context of, all right, if I'm just taking this completely in ignorance, how would I think? But you were not taking this in ignorance. You are a smart person. I'm guessing that you had some sort of, I bet that there's something here because you're trying to prove a point, Clay. And the point here, something might be off, which again, got you to ignore the initial answer and then think through it. So again, good job. I'm glad you chose to do that. All I'm saying is let's keep in mind the overall context here and let's not default to, none of this is a problem because I got those right. Like I said, you had some suspicions that maybe things weren't as clear as obvious as what they may have appeared. Now, this is all our long way of getting to our two systems in our thinking. And that's why those questions were genius, because it really illustrates how our mind wants to default and how it will think. And our mind's two parts in system, and I love this quote, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. So these two modes, the first one is literally called the intuitive mind, the intuitive thinking system, and then the other is not called the rational, it's actually called the deliberative thinking system. So literally that's how it's broken down into, in the study, it's a part 1 and a part 2, but we have our intuitive thinking system and then our deliberative thinking system. But that quote completely holds true, as we'll see. Now let's look a little bit more into our intuitive thinking system, which we all just experienced. It operates automatically and very impulsively, and this is because it's natural. And very little effort is used when activated. And what do we crave? Remember the little effort thing? So when very little effort is activated, hey, that is great. And that's, in many senses, we have zero sense of control because it happens so, dare I say, intuitively, hence the word, that, hey, we almost don't even control it. Again, think back. Did those answers just pop into your head like you didn't even have control over it? For me, yeah, just boom, just like that, they showed up. And, now that I reflect back on it in hindsight, I don't think I had much control in terms of those answers popping in my head. But what I did have control over and what I failed to do was actually ignore it. But like in the heat of the moment, there's very little sense of control. And this means we are very quick in making judgments. And from a time perspective, our answers comes quickly, which we love. But when you mix in risk and uncertainty, as we've already talked about, this is where we're going to have a blind spot. This is where a blind spot loves to absolutely show up. Now, going back to the quote and why I think it's genius, because he's right. That the intuitive mind is really, it's a gift. It's a sacred gift because it's so useful in so many ways. So ask yourself, do you feel any effort Do you feel any energy being exerted in the following situations? If you're driving around in a familiar area. Calculating 4 plus 4. I'm assuming that you look at that and boom, just like that, you have the answer and you didn't even blink an eye. You're looking at two objects. Which one is closer? Is that like a mentally taxing exercise? No, you're going to look and be like, okay, that object is closer than that one. How about completing common phrases? Don't put all your eggs in one, I'm sure your mind was like, basket. Get a of your own medicine. I'm sure you're just like, yeah, get a taste of your own medicine. If you don't know those sayings, then I guess that kind of further proves a point we'll see later on. But, go ahead, go find a list of common sayings, and I guarantee you'll be able to just instinctively fill them in. So this is all just a roundabout way of saying our intuitive thinking system saves us so much energy and time. And the thing is, most times, this is best, right? So earlier I mentioned that it's not like this is a mental blind spot in the case of, oh, wow, it's always going to lead us astray. No, in the vast majority of times, we love it. It's a sacred gift, and it should be, because it is saving us time when there isn't a need to expend time. Because, like I said, why would you need to expend time? Why would you need to give deep thought if you're driving in a familiar area? Like, do you really need to put up your fingers to do 4 plus 4? I mean, my kids do at a very young age, but do you? Well, of course not, right? And that would be silly if our minds led us to do that, because, well, it's all intuition at this point. What about the deliberative thinking system? Well, this needs to be triggered by acknowledging a problem, right? If we don't think a problem is actually a problem, then yeah, like 4 plus 4, is that a problem? Yes, in a broad sense, it is a problem. It's a math problem. But in our minds, is it an actual problem? Like, uh-oh. No, it's just very intuitive. Boom, that's 8. So when we do acknowledge, though, that it is a genuine problem, mental effort and energy is required. And there is going to be, and there is control, as we can literally feel the effort being used. And this is where our mind works slowly in making judgments, right? Because we've activated this, the energy is required. We can feel this effort. We can feel this energy being used. I mean, you've been there before, right? Where after you complete a task, you feel mentally exhausted, you just feel tired. And that's because all this is creating concentration, mental exertion, and choices. And when you have lots of choices, when you know that there's multiple choices and you have to think through those choices, what might be wrong, what might be right? Well, yeah, that's going to require mental exertion. That's going to require concentration. And when you mix in risk and uncertainty, this is our shield against those blind spots. Because yeah, risk, uncertainty, you want to make sure you're thinking through things, right? You want to be thinking through and being concentrating. And I don't have to tell you this, but as traders, if I were to tell you, yeah, I wasn't concentrating very much in my trading, you'd be like, oh, so it was probably a pretty bad day, or else you just totally lucked out and had a good day, right? If I told you, yeah, there wasn't really much mental exertion in my trading, you'd be saying, okay, so were you just like decided to become a degenerate gambler? Like, what do you mean you didn't exert any mental? And what? No, because we all understand that is required. But yet, even with that understanding, things are so tricky. And again, the quote, this part, which again, we're not going to call it, to stick with the study that was done, the deliberative mind is a faithful servant. And it really is. Now ask yourself, do you feel any effort in these situations? Driving in traffic in an unfamiliar area. Yeah, you're going to feel that mental load. How about calculating 58 plus 59? I mean, yeah, you're going to feel a bit of a load there. What about avoiding multiple objects at once, right? Not just, oh yeah, that object's closer. Oh, well, now you got objects. I mean, you're going to have to think through that. You're going to have to be very deliberative in your thinking to try to make that happen. How about listen to somebody and comprehend what they have to say? So a big difference. But you do all this to a person. So listen to a person while in a noisy room, right? That's going to take, because you got to block out what other people are saying, which means you got to be that much more deliberative in listening. How about prepare a trading plan with the potential outcome of losing your hard-earned money, right? That sounds like a system where, you know what? There's going to need to be some deliberative thinking. Deliberation and attention are required to properly address these problems, right? And that goes without saying, yeah. When you have actual problems, then yeah, you're going to have to deliberate through them. You're going to have to give them actual attention. Now, intuitive thinking, it does make sense. So know this, you are not being irrational to trust your intuitive thinking. I already talked about this earlier, but in many situations, you would be considered a crazy person if you decided to just start to exert all this brain power and exert all this effort to do 4 plus 4. People are like, wait, what are you doing? Like, that's 8. Like, what's the point, right? So it's not like any of us are crazy when these things happen to us as traders, because it's completely rational in so many areas of life. And some of it is wired into our DNA, such as perception. So think about it. You hear a balloon pop, boom, instinctively, intuitively, you're going to react to that loud sound. You're going to maybe look over, what was that? Oh, it was a balloon. But without even thinking, think back to there's no control. You just, boom, you look over there at that balloon. What about recognizing objects? Do you have to sit there and contemplate and think through and ponder? Oh, look at that thing. It's big and gray and it's got a long nose. Right? I bet your mind already said, oh, you just described an elephant. Yeah, exactly. Because you can recognize not even objects, but even descriptions of objects with very little effort. How about instinctively, intuitively avoiding threats? If I swing a baseball bat at you, you're not going to have to think through, like, should I duck? Should I try to get out of the way? Your body's just going to be like, I got to get out of here, right? Because that is just wired into our DNA. Our minds are efficiency machines with repetition, right? Riding a bike, driving a car. After you get, jumping jacks out of the way, if you do them enough, you know what? You're going to be able to do a jumping jack because it's repetition. Our minds are efficiency machines with observation. And this is consistent observation of cultural norms, which is why if you did not maybe get those slogan or those sayings that I got, taste of your own medicine, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's what I mean by cultural norms, because maybe in your culture, those sayings just aren't said. So, but in mine, where I grew up in the United States, or at least in my immediate place in the United States, I've heard those terms many, many times, and I've observed them as part of the culture. But all this comes from observation of social situations, interactions, and languages. Think about it. Somebody says hi, what do I say? Hi back, right? Or somebody says bye, what do I say? Bye. Maybe I say see you later. But like I said, do we actually have to exert effort somebody just said hi. Somebody just said hi. Well, no, we're just like, hey, how you doing, right? It's not hard. We almost don't even have control. Our minds almost just spit out what we're supposed to say and are quote unquote supposed to say based on cultural and our observations of it. So our minds automatically know how to guide us in behavior, even if we have never encountered the situation before. So an example of this would be using symbols. I'm sure you'd have a good idea of what room the bathroom, where the bathroom is in a foreign place, right? You would assume that the symbol is something that's got a toilet. You get the idea, right? And in most situations, yeah, we should be trusting our intuitive mind. We have good intuition, broadly speaking. But we're not talking broadly right now, right? We're talking trading. Now think back to class 2. And all of this, because this is why the classes were organized the way they were, because I'm going to, refer back to what class 2 was all about. But think about it. You study chart patterns with lots of reputation and observance, as we just talked about. You're like, oh, look at that, a bull pennant. And then you look at oh, look at that, a bull pennant, right? That's what you're seeing. Do they both look like bull pennants? Yup. Yeah, they do. And that is our intuitive thinking. But this is not good. This is not good. Because remember back to class 2, when we get deliberative with our thinking, when we start to factor in additional data and information, well, this is where our deliberative thinking comes into play. And then you remember, well, yeah, with some deliberative thinking, they are both bull pennants. Thank you, intuitive thinking. However, this one's happening at 10, that one's happening at 12:30. So they're not the same in the regards, because sometimes are more, better to trade than others. Not to mention with our deliberative thinking, that one's actually got a big old 200 period moving average right above that breakout point. So that could be a very quickly failed breakout, right? So class number 2, this is where, yeah, one was the description of intuitive thinking, one was deliberative thinking, and that was back with a representativeness heuristic. Now let's go through a little story of Billy Bob the trader. And the night before he did his analysis and developed his trade plan, and his thought process was this right there. It seems as though sellers showed up, had a resistance, and then yeah, generally speaking, the sellers have remained in control. You have that general overall downtrend. And then he also noticed right there that currently the trend line here illustrates where the seller's location is at. It just seems to be that, yeah, prices bounce, but they get up to that area and that's just where the sellers seem to be hanging out. However, he does notice this. He does notice that as of right now, the price right there at point A is at a location where, previously speaking, the price has bounced up before. So there is a history, and there's multiple points of history where the price has gotten down to that area and then has made a move back upwards. And then he's going to have point B and then point C, which is all part of his trade plan over here. So he's doing this the night before, he's structuring his trade plan, and his trade plan is this, that he wants to buy at point A, and he's looking for a bounce because, as we've established, it's bounced before. And then he wants to set a stop loss at point B, and then he wants to sell half his position at point C, given that the price could very realistically get rejected from that area. But to be fair, maybe that might be a breakout. Maybe it breaks out, maybe it reverses. But yeah, it could very realistically get rejected. So let's make sure we sell half the position so that we can at least lock in some of those profits. And then we have this, and this is the update, which you can see down there in the bottom right-hand corner. You can see that the price has gone up. He was right. Came down there. It is now bouncing. The price is now going up. But Billy Bob decides to sell nothing and can continue. He can decide, I want to hold. Because look at that. The move is clearly bullish. Look at that. It's going up. This is bullish. And then that happened. So that was just a zoomed in point of view. That's what happened next. Quite literally, the seller showed back up and that trend line demolished the price. Not only did it go back to those lows, it continued to go further and further downwards. In other words, all those gains he was looking at not only went back to break even, but then disappeared, and it was a losing trade. So, I mean, how did this happen to Billy Bob? Especially when the night before he did all of this, he put in his time and effort. So, I mean, why was all of this ignored? Billy Bob, in a semi-literal way, he blinded himself by taking that mental shortcut. Right, he did that, which all of a sudden, just literally, he got blinded. He essentially discarded all of that previous research that he had done. So what happened then? Well, at this exact moment in time, Billy Bob, well, he did not want to lose out on profits. Why didn't he want to lose out on profits? Well, I mean, if I sell half, then that's bad. So, I mean, why would I sell anything? I don't want to lose out on profits. The price movement was clearly and strongly bullish, right? Because that's what he's looking at. He's looking at the price going up. It bounced right from the spot he thought it would bounce from. So he's feeling fantastic. He's saying, well, yeah, price is going up. That's strongly bullish. I mean, he just used the representative heuristic. Think back to class number 2. Meaning this, he said, hey, price is going up. When prices go up, that is bullish. The price has been going up. In my situation, in my trade, the price has been going up. Therefore, the bulls are strong. Now, let me ask you, is any of that false? No, it's not false. When prices go up, it's bullish. And if you're in a trade and the price has been going up, hey, that is a good situation for you. But that line of logic right there, my question is, does that sound like a thought process demanding effort or energy to just sit there and say, oh, look, the price is going up. That's bullish. Or, to say to yourself, in general, prices going up equals bullish. For me, the price has been going up. Therefore, hey, the bulls are strong. No, right? That's like a very simplistic thought process. So, I mean, why did this very simplistic thought process show up? Well, remember, our minds crave time savings and efficiency. Our minds want to conserve as much energy as possible, which is leading to replacing the hard question with an easy to answer question, right? So you look at that and you say, is it bullish when prices are going up? Well, yeah. So intuitive thinking quickly makes us believe that, you know what, this is the right question to be asking, right? Is it bullish when prices are going up? Yeah, it is bullish. Okay, that's the right question. In other words, it's all about this, and this comes from the scientific study too that was done that's very popular. The WISIATI, what you see is all there is, right? Kind of like laser focus. You look into that narrow patch of area. So one of those things where out of sight is out of mind, right? You forget everything out because it's not in sight. It's not what you're seeing. All you're seeing is that narrowed range of things. And in that narrow range, it is true that the price is going up. And it is true that when prices go up, things are bullish. That is all true. But yeah, that's a very easy question to ask. Is the price going up? Yeah. Is it bullish when price is going up? Yeah. So right, that's easy. But that's therefore what's making it the wrong question in this situation. Because what is the hard question? The hard question here is, okay, well, how does the below analysis, which was done previously, influence the current moment in time right there? And this is all going to be deliberative thinking. It's going to make us need to use mental energy effort to answer this more complex question, right? And it's just a little quiz. And this is going to be obvious, but which is effort-filled and now you know is therefore more deliberative. Is it bullish when prices are going up? Yes. Is the price currently going up? Yes. Hold strong. This is bullish. Okay, did that seem very effort-filled? And I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to hammer this home because this is important. This is how everything can be casted aside that was done the night before. But okay, well, I don't know, maybe I get something that's even less effort-filled. How does this below analysis influence the current moment in time? Well, generally speaking, the sellers are in control, which can be seen by the overall trend. Therefore, the probabilities of this current bullishness continuing are not in our favor. In order to compensate for this higher risk of failure, we need to lock in some profits, right? To go through all that, yeah, you're connecting a bunch of dots. You're taking a bunch of pieces of data and you're factoring them all in to illustrate and to make sure you remind yourself, right? Think back to that question. Some of you, you're like, wait a second. This isn't as easy as what it appears. And you ignored that intuitive thought. You ignored the easy reply, right? The easiness of it all. You rejected it. You ignored it. Just like in this case, to look at that near term, you know, what you see is what you get. Okay, yeah, this is bullish. That's true, but is there more that goes into this problem? And yeah, you look like, oh yeah, remember all that homework I did the night before? Yeah, this is bullish, but it's happening in a bearish context. So I better realize that the probabilities are very real that this could get rejected at that trend line. But all that means that you're taking the bigger picture. But in taking the bigger picture means that you are having to exert more effort, meaning you are having to exert more mental brain power, which again, we don't want to do. So intuitive thinking really visualized is just there because moving forward, the dominoes, they are representing their heuristics and other cognitive bias that we will be covering in the next classes. But just realize that the thing that makes all these so prevalent and so easy to do is that intuitive thinking desire. It just wants to flick down. It just wants to, let's go. Let's get this party started. And think about how the intuitive thinking led to the representative heuristic, which again, we talked about in class 2 in this example here. Just so intuitive, so just, it seems to free flow. It seems to be so natural. And yes, again, in many situations, it is natural and it should be natural because we're okay to trust our intuition. We're okay to trust that intuitive thinking. But in trading, as you saw here, the temptation is very real, but it can get you into a lot of trouble.